time to begin, and I would like to welcome you to this webinar where we're going to talk about psychological first aid. I need to inform you that we will be recording at the request of IFRC the webinar, that the webinar will be very practical. You will need the pen, preferably wood. If not, fine. You will just need a pen for the first exercise we're going to do. The webinar will be practical. And let me begin by welcoming you and thanking you for coming. So my name is Suzanne Akasha. I am with Anouk Boschma from the PS Center, and we are here today to work on psychological first aid for all. That's a slogan we've created in the movement, PFA for all. And for this webinar, we called it Anywhere, Anytime. The reason being that when you're able to do psychological first aid, you have a skill set. It's not a technique. It's a set of skills that you apply when people are in distress. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to go directly so that you can watch here. And we have a chat that we will use. You will be working in groups during this webinar. So once more, I'm Suzanne Akasha. I'm from the Red Cross Red Crescent Reference Center for Psychosocial Support. We're based in Copenhagen, and we are working for the full movement, Red Cross. We work closely with ICRC and lots of other institutes and universities, and we do research and the lot. And Anouk, could I ask you to present yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anouk Boschma. I'm like Ea, I'm a colleague of hers. I'm a MHPSS technical advisor at the IFRC PS Center in Copenhagen.
Right. So let's get back to what we're going to do. When we're going to work with psychological first aid, we have three basic principles, and I'm sure that a lot of you know very much about psychological first aid. So you will think that it's pretty basic what we're going to do, but actually we're going to talk about the principles, we're going to apply them, and I'm going to tell you where you can find more material. So the first basic principle, action principle, is look. And we're going to look. Can I ask you all to become active in a second when I have presented the next principle? The next principle is listen. So you're going to look, then you're going to listen, and finally you're going to link. And one way that you can use with staff and volunteers to remind them about the principle is to say, look, listen, and link. So I'd like you all to become active. So let's start. Come, look, listen, and link. And now we do it once more. The other hand, use the other hand. Look, listen, link. One more time with the other hand. Look, listen, and link. I saw my colleague did that. That was very good. Thank you very much. So when we learn, it is a process of also being active. And as you can see in this training, on this webinar, there are no PowerPoints. But I have written all my instructions, and I will show you instructions like this. That's one of the basic principles that we use at the PS Center to make people actively engaged. So today, what I have planned to do with you is to focus on a case story that we will work through, where you will practice listening, you will do different exercises. But you could wonder, why don't we talk about Beirut blast or COVID-19? So we have done a lot on COVID-19. I will tell you where you can find materials. And for the Beirut blast, we have just yesterday produced this material that you can find on our website, which is quite important. And it is called Talking and Writing about Mental Health and Psychosocial Support in Emergencies. And as you can see, it's only a 2-pager. It's for journalists and others, humanitarians, to avoid getting into the trap of thinking everybody's traumatized. We will talk more about that during this workshop. Everybody has got PTSD. However, of course, the Beirut blast is quite something. So I have taken a smaller exercise, and we will go through that today. So that once the principals are trained and you know how to use them, you can use them anytime, anywhere. I hope this makes sense. I should say another thing, that my colleague Anouk will have a look at what's going on in the chat, so that when you do write in the chat, and if you have questions, if there is something interesting, she will interrupt us and tell us something we need to address. Right. So let's get started. I told you I was going to give you some more information about where you can find materials, because now we are in the webinar series for the summer virtual school, and it's more on learning. So some of the people in that sector are not so familiar with our materials. On the website, we do have lots on psychological first aid. You may be familiar with WHO material, but we have produced our own for the Red Cross Red Crescent. So this is a basic manual for everybody. It's more than 100 pages. Oh, 101, 102, 103. And it is online. We also have online PFA learning sessions, so that you can see here, it actually says your name. That means that there is a set of tools that you can use and adapt. They're translated into several languages, where you can do your own online PFA training related to COVID-19. It has a basic module that will take 1.5 to 3 hours to go through with participants. You can do it online, and then there are additional modules. One is, for example, children, working with children during COVID-19. One is caring for staff and volunteers remotely. And as you can see, we've used drawings, and so that you can have drawings from all different ethnicities, I can never say that word, and cultures. We can also find webinars on podcasts on the website. Furthermore, we have these cards, you may have heard about them, that are to be folded. So they are cards for child-friendly space at home activities with instructions that caregivers can do with children, older children can do with siblings and other children. We have released really good international material back in school after COVID-19, with sessions for teachers, but also for Red Cross, Red Crescent staff and volunteers and other NGOs that they can do, or sport club leaders. And for the PFA, there's training modules, there's activity catalog for children, child-friendly spaces. There's so much. You can find anything on our webpage. And now somebody's thinking, but they don't have anything for young men. Yes, we do. Young Men's Resilience Program. So there's something for everybody. Back to the psychological first aid. I will allow myself to say PFA when we talk. And the first principle, remember what it was? The first principle? Some of you have your cameras on. Can I see the first principle? Yeah, look. Oh, good. You're listening. Good. So first principle, look. So now we're going to have look out. We're going to talk about look out. Part of looking out is looking out for yourself. Easy said. You have all been to trainings where you've had this long list: sleep well, eat well, don't drink, don't exercise. But one thing is having all this piece of advice on a piece of paper. Another thing is doing it. So we're going to do it now. So as you may have read when I announced this webinar, there's also something about becoming a nicer person. And this is linked to the pencil. So grab your pencil. We're going to do an exercise. We're going to slow down. We're going to get in touch with ourselves. So you take the pencil and you take your hand, and now you just gently outline your hand. You're just going to slowly and with full attention, as far as it's possible, outline your hand and notice what is happening when you do it. You can do the palm. And the fingers. And the back of the hand. If you sigh, it's a good sign. And you can do the wrist. And while you're doing it, notice how it feels. Now you can stop. And notice how that hand feels in relation to the other hand. Maybe you can change and do the other hand. And I'm going to go on talking a bit while you do it to explain why we're doing what we do. Because what we're doing right now is, you could say, getting in touch with ourselves. That's a very basic way of saying it. We are working with the senses. So we get to know and feel ourselves. And when we do that, we release a brain chemical that's also a hormone that's called oxytocin, which is one of the oldest neurotransmitters and hormones in the body, just as old as the stress system. And whenever you need to go into a dramatic situation to offer PFA, you need to be able to calm yourself. You need to look out for yourself, and you need to know how you can do it. A very common way for people before they enter a situation is just to take one simple moment and just take a deep breath. So end with the second hand, and then take a deep breath with me. Just take a deep in breath, and it doesn't go out. Your shoulders don't lift. That's a high breath. You want it to go down into the entire torso. So think of the torso like this. So take a deep breath and breathe out. And you noticed when I was doing the hand, I was also sighing, because for me, this exercise is like, you could say, it's like a reflex. I can do it really quickly. You need to actually do these exercises regularly so that you can easily calm yourself when you're going into difficult situations. Okay. So first aid responders need to train their ability to be able to calm themselves, to be present, to be alive, to be in the here and now, because this is what we're going to do. We're going to enter into the dramatic here and now. So thank you for going into the breakout rooms. I asked you to present yourself. When you do that, you very often small talk a bit. Did any of you small talk, like, where are you from? Ah, you're in Indonesia. Oh, wow, you're from the other part of the world. Did any of you do that?
Yes, I
Yes.
did. Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
I did.
Oh.
Okay, that's brilliant. So what did you say? What could be things you said?
We shared experiences.
Yeah, exactly. So one level that we need to be mindful of in psychological first aid is actually the ability to small talk. For some people, this is really challenging. Some people absolutely hate it. I was once seeing a client in individual therapy who hated small talk, and the person's job was actually to do small talk. I need to mute you all because now we have lots of background noises. So let me mute you. Mute everybody. So, or could I ask you to mute you? So small talk is really important. We need sometimes to not go to the deep level if we don't want to talk emotions, because if you are very emotional, you may need to bring a person to the small talk level. We will get back to that in some of the work that we will be doing. So never scoff on small talk. Small talk is the social, sort of the glue that we have. When you come into the office in the morning, or when you come as a volunteer, or whenever you are, you say, oh, how are you? Did you sleep well? Or whatever. All this small talk is a way that we liaise with others. And the first thing we need to know about psychological first aid and any crisis is that a crisis is a social event. It is never just one person affected, it's affecting the community. Well, that was maybe a bit much. So let me talk about look. Now we were looking out for ourselves. We did the exercise. I could ask you to think about other ways you look out for yourself, but I could also show you what we're going to talk about today. We're going to move into the case. So I have a case study for you. Where do I have it? I'll bring out the case study. Here it is. I have a case study. So I need you to be able to see my case study. I will explain. Can you see the case study?
Could I advise people to use the speaker view if they can't see it well? Because on the teeny tiny screen, you can't see it. But if you have Aya in speaker view, screen,
let's go to speaker view. Yeah, now it's you speaking. Can you see it? Yeah. So imagine this is summer or July 2020. We have a busy shopping street. On this shopping street, you have supermarket, you have a clothes store, they have a sale on, so lots of people. You have a cafe, tables on the pavement. And here you can see the pavement where people are walking, sitting in the cafe. You have a street, here's a street, a row of parked cars. Is that clear for everybody? Yeah, good. On the other side of the pavement, there's also people walking, lots of people walking. It is time for the sales. It's a lovely day where people can be out. You have this car. This is the row of parked car. There's an old gentleman who is in the car besides the passenger, who happens to be his wife. By mistake, this poor gentleman presses on the speeder, the accelerator, and the car first bumps into another car, then drives full speed across the pavement into the store. And you may see there's somebody lying down because there's a young boy who's shopping for clothes, very interested in football, who is then hurled on the hood of the car and falls down. The car ends up smashing the window. Police will arrive, ambulance will arrive. Now, I want you to make a list, or I want you, sorry, that was not very pedagogical. I would suggest, as they say in French, I will suggest that you make a list of people that are affected. So think about who would be affected by this accident. Make a list and take out your paper and your pen and spend 3 minutes on making a list of those who are affected.
Please, can you come again? I lost my internet for a second.
Yes, I was just explaining that you need to write a list of people who are affected. Did you see the presentation of the case story? Did you hear that? Yeah.
Yes,
So just make a list, and there's 2 more minutes to make a list of who is affected.
Some people are putting in the chat that they're done, yeah. So just
Good. Time is also gone. So would somebody name the 3 first people that they think are affected? Who would do that for me?
Adnan Ahmed,
Adnan would do that. Yes, Adnan, come on.
car driver,
Yeah.
customers, random people, shopkeeper,
Shopkeeper. Yeah.
security guard outside the shop.
Security guard. Yeah, we don't have security guards in all parts of the world. I think you must be from which part of the world are you from, Adnan?
Pakistan.
Yes. I miss Pakistan so much. So thank you. Somebody else will give me who else is affected? Yes, Dr. Shanta, who is affected? 3 other people who would be affected?
Even the driver.
Driver, yes, of course.
And the boy who shop the clothes.
The boy, yes, of course, and the wife, yeah.
The wife.
And the wife. Somebody saying the wife. Don't forget the women, yes.
Yeah.
Good. And who else is affected? Somebody else?
The casualties, parents. The casualties, siblings and parents.
Yes, parents of the guy that was the young boy that was 15, who was injured and taken to hospital.
Those who saw the accident.
Yeah, those who saw the accident.
Also.
Onlookers, yeah.
The rescue workers also.
And the rescue workers, yes. Imagine this is their 4th call during the day. Imagine they have a son of the same age, or a nephew, or somebody they know of the same age, or they have been sent out to children. So one thing we need to think about is that it is always affecting people more when children are involved. This is what breaks people. You know that, yeah. So actually, thank you very much, because onlookers, shoppers, staff, guests in the neighboring cafe, police, ambulance personnel.
There's also some answers in the chat, yeah. One of them I think is worthwhile mentioning is the families and friends of people.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Thank you very much, Anouk. Perfect. So what we do think very often, we tend to think that it is 1 or 2 persons who need to be sent to a psychologist or special services. But in fact, there are so many people involved. And we also need to think about what could make the reactions worse for somebody. I have mentioned a few things, and for this case study, there are other things that you can think about. Some of the factors that will impact how people react, because we don't react in the same way. 2 participants raised their hands. Yes. Who would like to go? 2 participants. Sorry, I need to find out. I'm sorry, I'm not. So when I have to talk and do this at the same time. Anouk, can you see who raised their hands?
I'm afraid I can't, but maybe they can speak up.
Okay. 2 people raised their hands. Can you speak up?
Some are crying.
Sorry? Come again?
Some are crying.
If somebody is
crying.
They're crying, yeah, they will be affected, yeah. And why would they be more affected? Why could this accident make people more affected?
Previous trauma?
Previous trauma, not necessarily, but I get what you say. It's quite right. And when there's a car that is ramming into a group of people, you would, in some parts of the world, think it's a terrorist attack. So there would be different ways. We always need to think about what is the context. So, of course, there can be individual context, previous trauma. You or I or anybody else have experienced previous car accidents, or seen somebody being hurled over the hood of a car, or we have been near one of the terrorist attacks that also happened in Copenhagen, where I sit. So if I'm near the place where it happened, there's actually, just to give you one example, there's actually one place in Copenhagen I don't like to pass. There was a bomb blast over 30 years ago. I still don't like to pass that building. It's just so ingrained in you. I was not present. So it's just just something I've read and heard about. And there could be the age, there could be so many things affecting people that we can't know about. So we need to find out when we go to offer PFA. So thank you very much. That is really great.
I can see Maria has her hand
Maria.
raised.
Thank you, Maria. Maria, could you speak up and unmute yourself?
She is unmuted.
Okay. Severity, loud noises may trigger. Yes, that was a comment. That's a very good trigger. Yeah. And counselors will be affected too. That's another comment. Okay. Moving on. Now, we're going to work on this case. So just imagine that you are trained in psychological first aid, or you want to support with psychological first aid. You pass by the victim, the young boy here who has been taken away. So what you see now is that you have the man and his wife from the car, you have a shop assistant, and you have the cafe owner. And there's a lot of onlookers still present. So I am going to put you into a role play where you will be offering psychological first aid. But first of all, let's look at the principle that you will work with. You will work with look, you will work with listen. So look at listen. Let's look at listen. Listen, listen, listen. So when we think about listen, the action principle of listen, we have the ears, because we're listening with the ears. And as you know, listen has the same number and letters as silent. So you're not only going to be silent, but you are going to be very attentive. You're going to listen, and you're going to listen for a number of things. And of course, you're also going to ask questions. So when we take the steps in listen, they may not always come in this order, of course, but look at them. First of all, it's all about how you approach. Say you want to approach somebody in a wheelchair. I've seen people done psychological first aid where they stand up and talk to somebody instead of kneeling down and being on the same level. I've seen that happening. I've seen people standing over somebody who was injured and lying on the floor and who needed support. And of course, you would kneel down if you want to be close to that person. So approaching, how you approach is really important. Not too slow, not too fast. You need to find the right way. Next, we talk about how you introduce yourself. You may say, hello, I'm from the Red Cross. My name is Ea. And then depending on the situation, you may say different things. Or you may not present yourself. That will depend on the situation. Of course, the correct thing is to present yourself, but sometimes you will just have to start, can I bring you a glass of water, or whatever it is that you need to do. And then you pay attention and you listen. And when you listen for the state that people are in. Because that will depend upon how you reply. But you also listen for needs. It can be practical needs. So some years back when we talked about psychological first aid, it was all about feelings. These days, we also listen and think about practical support as being very important. So you listen for the needs that people have on an emotional level. It can be the need to contact somebody, or it can be the need for we'll come to that later, to be linked up with others. So what is it that they're saying without saying it that they need? Because very often they wouldn't know what the needs are. So we need help. We need to help them with clarifying their needs. And it's not like you say, what do you need? Is there anything, do you need anything? Because it can be embarrassing to say that for people. We still do accept feelings, but it's not like if people are really going on and on and on, we don't want to take them out of the emotional state, because emotions tend to override your thinking part of the brain. So we need people to have the thinking cap back on. But if people are saying, oh my God, oh my God, we accept it. We don't say, stop whining and think. And then we need to calm people who are in distress. And one way can be to start small talking, as I've said, the practical help, and help them find solutions. So it can be many, many different things. So wait a sec, I just need to turn here. You could say, can I help you? That's one way you can approach people. What happened here? And just imagine if you were in some sort of distress, something just happened. There's a difference between saying, are you okay? It's different if I say that, or if I say, what happened here? So please think about that when you do the role play in a little while, because if you say, what happened here, you're asking people to think, and you're asking them to think about what happened, which is maybe more important than how they're doing. You can say, how are you? That's more open. And then you can suggest, of course, can I get you a glass of water? Can I get your blanket? So there will be many different opening remarks that you can offer after you have introduced yourself, if you do that. Is that clear? Any questions? I'm a professional agency like police who might not be happy with the interference. We should report to the police first. Yeah, that will depend on the country and situation. That's very different from context to context. And one thing you need to think about is that national societies work differently in all different countries. I don't know if you're all from the Red Cross or Red Crescent, but I can assure you that even though we have the same overall mandate, the role in each country can be different. So in some countries, we are able to assist the police. In some countries, we will not be. That will depend on the context. So what I'm talking about is in general. Any other comments or questions?
Quick comment from my end. Could everybody please mute themselves if they're not speaking?
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Right, so let's talk about calming others, because that's also part of what we do here, because we need to help people find their solutions and offer the practical help, and it can be important to calm them so that they don't harm themselves or others. And you can do that in many ways. So in my country and in my most context where I have worked, I have almost always been able to put a hand on people's arm so that the contact will automatically calm them. I have never experienced anybody not wanting it, but if somebody is shrugging you off, of course you don't. And you don't go to somebody who's very, very agitated and say, calm down, and pat them on the back. And if you have to pat somebody on the back, you do it in a slow rhythm. You don't do it like this. So it has to be very slow and gentle. You can tap yourself in a slow and gentle way and notice how it feels.
We have some comments in the chat area that maybe you could reply to. Dr. Deo Oluwaniji is asking, is it appropriate to ask, is there anything I can do to help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good question. Is there anything I can do to help? Yeah.
And then Dr. Shanta Gatak is asking, some people get angry and get into a fight as well during such episodes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So if we have people who get into fights, one thing let me just get back to that and just finish, because I had a list here of what I wanted to say. So one thing you do yourself is speak calmly, speak slowly. You may remind yourself that you need to repeat things, because when we are upset, we can't hear as well. So really, we repeat things. And as I said, if they are getting very emotional, and this is coming back to this question when people are very upset, first of all, I want to say emotionally, like overwhelmed, I would sometimes ask really everyday questions. So where are you from? Where do you live? So I would do that. Or I have done the same with upset youth when they were sort of doing raving havoc in the streets. I've seen them throwing things around in the street. Then I would simply do something completely unexpected, walk up to one of them and say, hey, do you know where I can find the nearest shop? I need to buy, and they will all of a sudden snap out of it and say, oh yes, down the street. So sometimes we can also do things like that. So we don't escalate the situation by entering into it, by taking them out of the situation. Could you help me? I need your help. You can also turn the tables around. But of course, sometimes if people are very upset and angry, it's better to run away. Sorry. If they're tattooed all over, like they would be somewhere in my country, I would maybe run away or not confront them directly. And I would, another thing that you do with very angry people, you don't look them in the eye. This is something we actually do train on the PFA trainings that I run. So I don't look them in the eye. So we train people to stand in front of each other, and then you look to the side. So if you look at me, you would look to where my headphones are, or now I'm looking at Anouk, I can see her on the screen, and I'm not looking her in the eye, because looking somebody in the eye when they are very aggressive will make them even more aggressive, because it's very confrontational. So I would do things like that, or keep quite a distance as not to impose on their space. So these were just a few things. Watch a while before approaching. That's another good point, and that's all about look out. When we look out for ourselves, and we look out for the safety of the situation. Okay.
There's one really good comment that is saying consent is important.
Yeah. Yes, of course. But very often you don't get the informed consent, like, may I help you? Yes, sign here, because people need the help. And they are, for instance, with the accident with the young boy, you don't need consent or consent for parents. You just act. We also know, like with first aid, that people who intervene with psychological first aid, they do better afterwards, because they know what to do. And as I said, and I wrote in the invitation for this meeting, you actually become kinder when you're helping others. So there's research pointing to that, and recent research also points to just thinking kindly about others also makes us kinder. Right, yes. So let's move on. Is that all right?
There's two nice questions that we can maybe get back to later. But
No. So take them now.
Back to now? Yes.
Yeah.
Maha Suleiman is asking, I have a question. If a person is clearly in distress but unwilling to talk or engage, how would you as a PFA responder approach them?
Yeah. That's a very good point. Thank you for that question. So if somebody does not want to talk and they are in distress but they don't want to engage, we don't usually engage. Or what we do, what I have experienced in some really huge humanitarian crises, where I will give you one example. I've seen that in several instances where I have been sent out with the emergency hospitals that the IFRC Federation sends out, and nurses are very upset because there's a patient who doesn't want to talk, clearly in distress, turns her back to the rest of the patients in the ward, don't want to talk, don't want to communicate. And then they call in the psychosocial supporter or the psychosocial delegate. And what you do there is you just, if there's time, you just go and you say, hi, I'm Ia, can I sit here with you for a moment? And very often people don't answer, but as long as they don't say, go away, or, strike me in the face, it's an acceptance. So you just sit there. It doesn't take more than a few minutes. And then you say, hi, I wonder if there's anything I can do for you. Would you like a glass of water, and maybe they will turn a bit, and then finally you can enter into conversation. I've seen that again and again and again. It's all about you accepting you have to sit there. When I was training in a psychiatric hospital, there was a patient, didn't talk, who were in straps most of the time, chained to the bed. Not chained, we don't chain people, but you know, I can't remember the name. And the psychologist went to see that patient once a week for half a year, for an hour, and just sat beside the bed until the patient started talking. So by just being present, by being another caring human, we can do a lot. So that was one thing.
There's a very good question.
Let me also say that the important thing here is you don't say a lot of things. You don't start talking. I can see that you're very distressed and you're lying in the bed and you have your back to me. And I wonder if you don't want to talk, because sometimes, you know, it can be very good to talk. So please turn around and talk to me, because otherwise I will really feel upset. And is there anything I can do? And maybe you're cold and do you want a blanket, or can I get you, you know, shut up. You just sit there. You're just another person present. Listen, silent, same thing. Anouk, another thing, what were you saying?
Well, I think this is really important to address. Abhishek Rimo is asking, what about the cultural barrier on touching?
Yeah, that's what I said. I have I've been in many countries, and I will usually ask if I can touch in countries where men and women don't touch. And we have some Pakistanis on the call that I've been working with, and there we have, like, if we need to touch, we can use tools like this, so we don't have a direct touch. But actually, even in countries like Pakistan and Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and Mali and many countries, have always been accepted that I could touch. But sometimes we wouldn't. And sometimes you don't want others to touch you because you don't like the way they touch. Yeah. Anything else?
Quite a bit about safety and security, and maybe good to address that. That's sometimes mentioned as the fourth principle, is to prepare, to not just enter a situation without preparation and taking care of your own safety at all times. So also leaving the situation when that's appropriate, when you don't feel safe. I would personally say I have very good experience with people with tattoos all over, so I want to address that as well. But at the same time, when you don't feel safe, that's the moment you want to leave. That's the most important criteria.
And for the look, listen, link, we actually put it under look, the safety aspect, because as I said, it is both look out for yourself, look out for the safety of the situation, before you enter it. That's part of the look here. You look out for yourself. But I think that if you've been trained with the WHO, it is not that clear that look is also looking out for your own safety and look out for yourself. So I agree. It's maybe a very important principle. Yeah.
Question to address, Aya, is people have questions about trauma in specific, and maybe also in relation to touching as well. One question that came up is Dominic is asking, is it healthy for a person who is traumatized to cry?
Yes. Now, that is a question that is difficult to answer yes or no. But first of all, we need to talk about trauma then. And when we enter into psychological first aid, of course, we will meet people who have just witnessed something really important. But what we need to know is that most people can actually cope quite well, even after very, very traumatic events, if they have social support. So that's the most important thing, that we're actually there for them, with them, after any accident. So this is principle number one. What helps us is social support. You can go through horrible things, as long as somebody says, I'm with you, I can understand, it must have been horrible. So trauma, we don't always need to talk about trauma. We don't need to talk about what happened. And we can't diagnose trauma until a long time after it has happened, not until a month or 6 weeks after. So that's PTSD, I'm sorry. But we will all have what we call post-traumatic stress reactions. That's something different, and that is normal and natural for all of us. So can I go on, because I come back to that?
Yes, just maybe later we can address this because there's a lot of questions about the environment and how to deal with bystanders and when there's a lot of wounded people, etc. So maybe we can. Come back to that later.
But now we're just taking it step by step. We're not going to Beirut. So what we're doing also when we listen, and what you will practice in the role plays that you will be doing, is that we will think about something that is really important. And part of listening is actually to be able to offer information about what happened to people, because otherwise you can have all these ideas. So in the case study, you can think about an information is that it was an accident. It was an old man who mistook the speeder, the brake for the speeder for the brake in the car. It was not a terrorist attack. And you can also inform people about what we call normal and natural reactions to a big event or an abnormal situation. So for onlookers here, what we will notice is that in this now, could you mute yourself?
I think you may need to mute everybody because there's a few people who
there's people
forget
who
to
are,
mute.
Who are maybe not. So I will, sorry, I'm just mute everybody. Sorry, mute all. I'm doing that. Okay, now you're muted and you can unmute yourself if you need to speak. So, for instance, with the onlookers here, it's very clear that they will be, when the police comes, they will have to leave the street. But then when the streets open again, they will come back and they will ask, so what happened? Because a lot of them did not really know was it a terrorist attack or what was it? So giving that kind of information is really important and part of what the psychosocial supporters will do in such an accident. So I would like you to go into groups. You have to work on the case. And there will be in each group an observer. There will be, I have the instruction that I will put up in a while. There will be an observer, there will be somebody offering PFA, and there will be somebody who will role play one of the protagonists in the story. The driver is one option to role play. The driver is in his 80s, standing at the pavement, just looking completely dazed, muttering to himself, I don't understand what happened. I just don't understand. How could this happen? I just don't understand. Oh, it's really, how could it happen? It's never happened before. So the man stands there and looks completely dazed and just mutters to himself. The wife stands next to him. She's also shocked. But here you are offering psychological first aid to the man. That's one option, and you will choose in the groups which option, and I will give you the instructions. Second, you have a shop assistant that is confused, a bit agitated, comes out, takes a few of the items from outside in, comes back and walks around and go back in, come out, doesn't really know what to do. When you talk to him, it's a young woman in her early 20s, you find out that she's very scared because the noise was so loud, and she thought it was really horrible. It reminded her of an earlier accident where there was broken glass, and she had the shards of glass. Nobody was injured, but there were shards of glass everywhere. Third case, the cafe owner who stands next, who's been coming here in the cafe serving, who saw the boy being hurled on to the front of the car, and who is really worried, scared, thinking about what if it had been my cafe? What if it had hit people sitting on the pavement outdoor where I serve. What if I had been hit? So you have 3 different cases with people with 3 different reactions. You need to approach them differently. You need to give them different information and ask different questions. Right. The instruction. How do you approach the person and present yourself? How do you calm the person? How do you listen and respond? Which information will you give to the person? Does that make sense? Not clear flipboard. Sakib, you can't see the flipboard. Sakib, did you hear me? Could you hear what I said?
I'll try to type the questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Only 3
good.
points.
Oh, that was a very good point. Sakib, where are you based now?
Only 3 points. I look.
Yeah.
4 and 5. I think.
Okay, it's just
Yes.
The 4th one
Yes.
is
Thank
which
you very
information
much.
will you give?
Thank
Brilliant.
you, Mary.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I'm back in Pakistan, ma'am. And we have the role play instruction. So when you go into the groups, you will decide who will observe, who will offer the PFA, and who will role play and have the PFA. The one who's going to offer the PFA can choose one of the 3 situations, depending on what would make you feel more comfortable, because you're with people you don't know. I would ask the observer to keep time, give feedback, and I will ask those who offer the PFA to choose a case, and the one who receives the PFA to give feedback. And Sakib, can you read it? Yes, here we go. And I want you to think about when you give feedback, you're not going to give Pakistani feedback. Pakistani feedback is, you did wrong. No, we do what went well. We talk about the good things that the person who offered the PFA did that went well. So we're trying to be kind and support each other in this round of role plays. So before you go into the group, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. In real time, actually, when you offer PFA in a situation like this with more people involved, each PFA round of PFA will usually just be like 5 to 6 minutes. It's not very long in this type of situation. So just be mindful that it's not a very, very labor intensive. It's not a very big thing. Usually you can offer PFA and they will feel supported and strengthened and acknowledged and seen and heard and witnessed in a very short amount of time. Of course, if it's a very big event and tragic event, you can sit with them for longer and they can tell you what happened, maybe 10 minutes. Usually it's not very, very long, just so that you know it's not a therapy, so you're not going into that, but you're going to go through the different things, look, listen, and not link today. We will talk about that after the role play. Ready? I would like to hear if any of you did do the role play where you had to support the driver. Is there a group who worked on the driver who would just, Anna, would you unmute yourself and say a bit about what happened?
So I was supporting the driver. To be fair, for me, it was quite stressful, even if it's just a role play, because I was quite unsure on how to start the conversation.
Yeah.
But I think it went well. But one I thought that was a really good feedback was that being mindful, not asking too many questions because it overwhelms the person and stresses them even more. And I think that's perhaps a reaction that you have as well, that, you know, when you are in a stressful situation, you start asking lots of questions if the person is not responding. So you change the questions and you keep going on the question. So that it's not a great way of doing things. So, but yeah, I think that was kind of a really good feedback in terms of, you know, the approach was good, the support, the information, the support with practical, you know, things was also good, but just be mindful the amount of questions you ask.
Yeah. Slow down. It's so difficult. I think we're all too prone to ask too much. Yeah. Or many of us are. So what kind of information did you give?
So I was just trying to reassure the driver that things were under control, that the ambulance was coming, that the police was coming, that there was no actions needed to be taken.
Right.
Asked if they wanted water or a chair to sit down.
Yeah, good.
If the wife needed support.
Yeah.
And yes, and that I would go for them to stay there waiting for me, that they didn't need to go anywhere, and that I would try to bring any further information if I had anything else to say.
But that's, and Anna, that's very good information that you say at the moment. You can say at the moment, I don't have more information. As soon as I have, I will bring it. Just being upfront about what you know and what you don't know is really important. We have all been in situations where, say, the train is delayed and nobody says anything and you just sit there. The driver can just say, or the conductor can just say, we don't know how long it will be. That's calming in itself. So just having that. So that was really great. So when you meet somebody who's that dazed and who keeps repeating, you can simply, and if it's in a context where you can touch each other, you can put a hand on the upper arm of the gentleman and say, yes, okay, I'm here, and then move on, as you say. And of course, you don't need to say much. You can just simply go as you do, give the information and ask if what they can need, and then he will calm down and tell you the story. And you can say, if the gentleman says, I don't understand, how could this happen? It never happened before. What can you say? What would you say, Anna?
What I said, because that's what the driver said. So I said, well, clearly there was an accident.
Yeah, good. Acknowledge. Yes.
Yeah, so clearly there was an accident and I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
What happened and do you need anything? So I
what
tried
happened?
to progress, but then like too many questions.
Yeah. What happened? But what happened is a good question instead of with a gentleman who's like that. And one thing you can also say is, where are you from? If you want them to come out and to be more able to respond so that they are snapping out of this shock situation.
Yes, what I asked
from, where'd you live? Yeah.
I asked if they were there for shopping or just passing, just to try to kind of divert the situation.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds really good. All we want to do is just, make it a bit longer. So it's like, there's more time between questions. Brilliant, Anna. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Who wants to talk about how they supported the shop assistant, which was somebody in a total different situation? Is there somebody who could give us, who role played that? Anybody role played? The shop assistant wasn't attractive?
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Yes, this
Hi,
is Alex.
Alex. Hi, Alex.
Yes.
In Bangladesh.
In Bangladesh, yes. Yeah.
So did you work with that case?
Yes.
Yes. Please report.
What we are two only, so we didn't have the observer. So
yeah, I saw that. Sorry.
We give feedback ourselves. The two of us, with my colleague. But what I did was, what I found was that she was very, she said she was shocked by what she had. of this accident, and so she didn't know much information, what happened, how many people have been affected, if anybody has died or not. So I tried to give the information I had gathered. When I arrived, I said, yes, one boy has been hit by the car, but has been supported by the police and is taken for treatment, and we shall get information about that. And in our feedback, she said that that was a bit relieving for her, because then she knew that somebody is being cared for, and there's no fatality at that time. So I think that was an important part of the information they gave, that really quickly could have helped her immediately.
Yeah. Good. Anything else to add?
No, I also, of course, said I will come back, and if I get more information about the situation, I will come back and ask how she can continue to be to manage her own situation. If she gets back, and so she was getting better, really.
She was getting better. That's very good. So one thing here that is very important that that you're highlighting is how important information and having access to that is for us to have the full picture and how much it calms us. So that's a very good example. I really think that was brilliant. Thank you, Alex. Anybody commented on the cafe owner who worked on that case story? Yes. Anybody? Anna, do you?
Hello.
Who's this?
This is Saiga Dominic. I am we are two in our room breakout with Methodist, and I am the cafe owner. So Methodist offered for me the support, the psychological first aid support.
Yeah.
So
and how did it work?
Well, it worked out so well, and she didn't talk too much because I was traumatized with what happened. But she has been available to me. More time is given to listen to me. But the situation is I am traumatized. I cannot talk too much, but she was available to me to ensure that she does what is required to connect me to perhaps people who can help me and take me to a safer place other than remaining at the scene of the accident.
Okay. So in fact, you call yourself traumatized, but please remember that we don't use the term traumatized very often, because we know that people do recover, and that none of us on this call we will all have been in a situation that were traumatic, and we will all have survived, and we will not have had intensive therapy, and we're still here, and we're still doing okay. So just by having somebody listening, like you were listening, you were being listened to, helps. So that was a very good example. And then you were linked, which is the final principle, that you were being linked to further support.
Yes.
Yeah. So you felt that it helped you. Somebody was just listening to you and being with you and witnessing what you were going through.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. That's very nice. We have a comment from.
Question, please.
Yeah, we have. But wait a sec, Dr. Oluwaini.
Yeah.
There was a comment first. Can we keep you keep on hold for a second? Because Anouk wanted to comment on something, and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah, there were a few questions in the chat, and I also want to highlight there's 3 minutes to go for the webinar. So we might have to keep it a bit short. If people need to leave the meeting, please do so. We won't keep you to a time schedule. But there were questions. Meng Ching is asking some things if she can say. For instance, the boy is conscious and somebody is attending to him, if that is okay to say. And would you like to tell me more if those are okay things to say?
Sorry, somebody. The injured boy was taken away in the case story before you entered. Remember, so there was no need to attend. That would have made it more complicated, of course.
No. Was the question. Good. Can I say the boy is conscious and someone is attending to him? If that was appropriate.
Yes, you can say that. You can say that. Yes.
And would you like to tell me more? Was another thing she would like to know?
Yeah, okay that would depend. I will usually stay with. Yeah, you can say that, or it will depend on who you are as a person. My preferred term is what happened to you, tell me about it, but that's the same. Right. But what happened, I will usually stress what happened to get into the storytelling, because we know that when people are very much in distress, they will not really have the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. So they will get it confused, and that can help them have a storyline. But we need to get back to Dr.
Olubaniji.
Yeah, thank
you.
Yeah. Come on.
Thank you. Okay, I acted the role of a driver.
Yeah.
And while the responder was asking questions from me,
yeah,
I deliberately did not respond or listen, but rather I kept on expressing surprise, disgust at what happened. In that situation, what do you think the responder should do?
Okay, good question. In that situation, I would say, from my point of view, I would get a bit direct, because if the man is completely engrossed in his own word, I would need to draw him out and say, yes, okay. So sometimes I would even go to the level of saying, so look at me, or do you need anything, or drink this water. I would become more directive. Yeah, but that's when we do the training and we are on in the same place, and we can do more training, and we can adjust it. But these are some of the things you can do. We're actually coming to the end of the webinar. We were just introducing and presenting you with some of these PFA tools. Most of the PFA tools, PFA is from before the war. It's an old intervention set of skills, I should rather say, and different national societies, different organizations have different ways of doing it, but we all built and agree nowadays on the approach by WHO that is built on look, listen, link, and it can have different aspects and different points that we stress. And I would like to take you back to where we began by saying that why do you become a nicer person, and who can you use it with? And just to sum up, say you can use it anytime, anywhere, with anybody. And as a result, if you know that you have these 3 action principles, and these are some of the things you can do, you will also not only help others, but you will also help yourself. And you will model this for your family and for your friends, so that more people will learn it. And actually, the PFA for all is not just something we say, it is what we're doing in the Red Cross Red Crescent moment at the moment. We are trying to make everybody learn psychological first aid, because we know psychological first aid is as important as first aid. Psychological first aid is part of first aid. When we learn it, we will prevent a lot of psychological trauma, to use that phrase, from developing later on. So all the tools are on the PS Center website, and please also look for the latest one that we just published on talking and writing about emergencies, where you can see more about why we don't say traumatized, because we want to empower people and help them to get well by themselves. So this is the end. 1 minute overtime. Apologies, and sorry for the breakout room. Some were not assigned, and I cannot explain why. And hopefully see you some other time at the PS Center.
And maybe to add, because there's a lot of questions about this, you can find all of our materials on pscenter.org. You can leave your details in the Google Doc link that I provided in the chat. And I also provided our email addresses if people have follow-up questions or we haven't been able to address all questions or comments. Apologies for that.
So final word. Goodbye.